Hi, I'm BJ, and this is the Arcane Alienist Podcast.
Dr. Boyd, it's Evil Jeff. Nah, let's go back to BJ. Hey, latest episode, enjoyed it. Thank you for talking about the Swords and Wizardry Book of Options. I agree with a lot of that stuff in there. Probably some things I don't entirely agree with. But what I appreciate most is you dropping professional knowledge on us to help us understand some things, give us some clarity. Because honestly, I can feel in my gut that Gygax and Arneson had read Freud stuff. They had been exposed to it, all sorts of psychological theories and things like that. Also seeing it in the books that they read. So good stuff. Appreciate what you do. I'm going to get back to mowing the yard here. Have a happy 4th of July. Have a safe 4th of July. And I'll wait to hear from you again.
Well, thank you for the call, Evil Jeff. It's been a while since I heard from you. I'm glad to hear your voice. Everybody, if you haven't checked out the Minions and Musing podcast, that is Jeff's podcast. I'll put a link in the show description. I think he may have been on a hiatus for the summer. Sometimes he takes some time off in the summer, but he's got a great back catalog, and I'm sure he'll be back maybe after the summer winds down to producing his regular episodes. So yeah, give him a listen. But yeah, Jeff, thank you for the comments. I have no doubt, that they had been exposed to Freud. In fact, I think even though sort of the origins of modern cognitive behavioral therapy sort of start much earlier than when Gygax was writing, it was kind of hard. It's been kind of hard until recently to not discuss the human mind, and particularly in terms of mental health, that without Freudian ideas dominating the discussion, particularly when you get outside of the field of psychology, because it's just so, the media has a fascination with Freud and the history of Freud and his ideas, and they do make for very entertaining uh, stories, for television episodes or plots in movies. Um, but that's probably when you lean into some of the little more, I would say, eccentric, pseudoscientific aspects of it. But yeah, there's some concepts in there that are still very very solid. And of course, Freud's work gives rise to Carl Jung's work, who gives rise to the works of Joseph Campbell, which is I think much more relevant when you're talking about fantasy and science fiction and the concept of the hero's journey, and the hero of a thousand faces seems to be very very I don't know. I would imagine there's a connection there to Michael Moorcock's idea of the eternal champion, which brings us back around to the original discussion of alignment from the Swords and Wizardry uh, Book of Options. So there we go. We have completed the circle. The saga is complete. We've returned from the underworld with new skills and new insights to be a more heroic version of ourselves and meet our destiny. Right. Anyway, but thank you for the call, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Hey BJ, thanks for your latest episode. I enjoyed it. The discussion of Freud's concepts and the intersection of Moorcock's cosmology, kind of interesting. I could almost see like having the id, the ego, and the superego be three cosmic entities, and all humanoids have a spark of each of them inside of them, and that's kind of what fuels their alignment, or something along that line, if you wanted to get esoteric with it, I suppose. But yeah, thanks for that. You talk about more books, and you recommend reading on Stoicism to some of your more intellectually minded clients. I guess that's my words. I don't remember exactly what you said, so if it sounds too snooty, it's my fault, not your fault. But another book that I've read and, well, I've listened to, and side topic here, I struggle to read nonfiction books and retain the information. I typically have to actually physically read the book with my eyes, with a pencil in hand, underlining and everything, to absorb that better. Anyhow, so I've listened to the book. Now I've bought the book and I haven't read it. But it is How to Think Like a Roman Emperor: The Stoic Philosophy of Marcus Aurelius. This is by Dr. Donald Robertson. Dr. Robertson is a Scottish cognitive behavioral psychotherapist, and this book is kind of a biography, psychology, and philosophy book rolled into one. So it's pretty cool if you want to check that out. He has recently come out with a new book, How to Think Like Socrates, but I haven't gotten that or anything yet, so that might be another book that I pick up at some point in the near future.
And here we have a call from Merck the Meek. I'll put a link to his podcast as well. Good to hear from you again, and for being a part of the discussion. That is an interesting concept of, when we think about how alignment works, kind of, I don't know if I say classically in D&D, at least the way it's supposed to have worked. Once we start establishing the nine alignment system in the outer planes, and there is the heavens, the plane, the seven heavens is the plane of lawful good. The abyss is the plane of chaotic evil, and each of the nine alignments have a plane where that alignment is a real thing. It is a cosmic force in D&D, which probably owes its origins with the influence of Moorcock, even though they changed kind of how we think about alignment and define alignment. But yeah, that is a really interesting idea that there are three outer planes, and they are the id plane, the ego plane, and the super ego plane, and they're all vying for influence over the minds and souls of mortal beings. So I think that would fit squarely into a a D&D like thing if you wanted to explore those concepts and use those terms, or hint at those terms, and however else you might want to refer to it. So I'll have to think about that. That might, you know, what is this thing that you have summoned, and it's an id demon, and it's just reckless and self gratifying and destructive, mostly just because it's driven by whatever whim strikes it. Well, what is this thing you've summoned? Well, this is a I've contacted a higher plane. I've spoken to the you know this being, the super ego being, some sort of super ego sentinel that's like this cosmic force that is over law and structure. That's really kind of a fascinating concept. I'll have to think about that more. I like that. Um, Thank you for the recommendation. Also, I've actually, since I got that call, it's been a week or two ago. I'm a little behind on putting this podcast together. I've started that book. I think I'm about halfway through it. That audio book, How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. It's really good. It does. It sort of takes moments from Marcus Aurelius's life where we know what he was doing and what was going on, and then the author sort of speculates on, well, given that Marcus was a Stoic, what might have been going through his mind. I mean, we may have known what he was doing and may have known a few things that he said, say lying on his deathbed, or when he was you know, at a certain phase in his life, and we kind of know what he was doing. It's like, well, at this point in his life, as someone who's trying to learn to be a Stoic or has become a Stoic, what has he learned, and then what does that teach us about how we might apply that to our lives? It is a really good book, so I'm eager to finish it and then check out the other book about how to think like Socrates. So thank you for those recommendations. Always a great discussion. All right. Today's episode, I've just got a quick segment of something I recorded in the car the other day. Just some thoughts. Another thought on Superman. You maybe by the time this episode drops, Jason's episode of Nerds RPG Variety Cast, where he and I do a more in-depth review of the movie, may have already hit by the time this comes out. I know a few days ago, Joe Richter uh, was joined by Jason, where they also did a review of Superman. But go see Superman. It's a great movie. Um, anyway, I guess I can, as an aside. It's been a great weekend. Friday night I played in a tournament style AD&D game online with Carl Rodriguez to celebrate his birthday. You would think that someone who runs as many games as Carl would want to celebrate his birthday by having someone else run a game for him. But no, Carl wants to run a special game for his birthday because Carl loves running role playing games. But that's really good. I'm sure we'll get a synopsis of that. We played through, uh, just a little first part of the Dwellers of the Lost City Classic AD&D module. I had a lot of fun. My character got turned into a snake at the climax, and we had to beat a retreat because I was the cleric, and now we didn't have access to our healing and protection magic. Um, anyway, that was a lot of fun. And then I saw Superman again last night for the second time. It's one that I felt was worth going and seeing on the big screen twice. And then, but yesterday morning, or really afternoon, I did another round of classic D&D, well, Swords and Wizardry, really, with my son and his friends is in a recurring game that I like to call D&D with Drama Kids. Some of the kids have kind of dropped off. It started off with a big group. We had at one point 12 active players, although I think there's only once they all showed up at the same time. I think we're down to maybe 6 players at this point, as some of those kids have graduated and gone on. One of them is going to college locally, so she stayed involved in the game. Um, and then, but they're talking about a couple other kids. They're all connected through their involvement in high school drama and band. So they're talking about some other kids that are kind of part of that social circle that are now kind of have entered into high school age with them, that they might want to start inviting. So the group may grow a little bit again, but it went really well. We're running kind of getting towards the end of the Caves of Chaos, or sort of, it started off as sort of a Caves of Chaos, but it's kind of morphed into its own thing. I've done this a couple times where I spread the location of the cavern entrance, so there's a little bit of a searching through the forest, and you can add some hex crawling or point crawling into the mix. So they've had a good time. They are trying to, they uh, allied themselves with the kobolds, or at least befriended the kobolds who don't want to be there. The kobolds have been forced to be in their location by the larger goblinoids, and they've gone back and, you know uh, basically bushwhacked a group of bugbears that had come to, check on the kobolds and make sure they were doing what they were supposed to do, and then force one of the bugbears to take them back to the bugbear lair. The idea is that they could find, put it into this, the kobolds could just go back to where they came from, and not bother anybody. But they do know that this enemy faction is holding the kobolds queen hostage somewhere. That's why the kobolds won't leave. So they find the bugbear lair. They ransack the bugbear lair. They do pretty good with the bugbears from the Caves of Chaos. Except I've popped what I refer to as a troll in the mythic world of Erd, which is actually an ogre. Statistically, it's an ogre mage, but it is meant to be more of a troll. Maybe more like you would find in Norse mythology, where it's sort of a more intelligent, not the D&D troll, but actually something ah something akin to maybe you might think of a frost giant, or not, or the Jotun in Norse mythology, but also sort of an evil fae, because the goblinoids are fae in my world, so, or at least descended from fae. So they find a troll who's in charge of the bugbears and really the whole operation. Well, they haven't really wandered in to really confront the goblins and hobgoblins and what they're doing in their caves. So there's still some things for them to discover if they choose to. But I thought this was going to be this big tough fight, and we might have a big blowout. But they, between reaction rolls and morale checks, the troll wasn't initially immediately hostile. It was more confused by their presence, is how the roll came up, or indifferent. So I just treated him as though he was kind of bemused by, hey, here are this plucky band of mortal adventurers who've come into this forest, and they've killed my bugbears and my goblins and disrupted my plans. But it's actually kind of funny to watch, and completely arrogant and confident in his ability to, dispatch him if he really needs to. Uh, but he agrees that, he's been sent here to occupy this area, this forest, and not allow mortals in, and that's really his job. So if they'll leave, there's no reason for any more destruction. But when he discovers what their quest is, he's like, "Well, I'll tell you where to find this person." Of course, being a deceptive fae, he's not going to give them a straight, complete answer, but he gives them a general location, and that's how they discover the entrance to the Knoll lair from the Caves of Chaos, and then they have go into the Knoll lair and they fight the Knolls, and they're doing pretty good at first till they reach the big Knoll at the end that is the pack leader, and they had two of them dropped down to 0 hit points, and were only rescued by the intervention of the druid in the party. But they did manage to. It was a knockdown drag out. They did manage to defeat all the Knoll leader, who's a lot tougher than your typical Knoll, and the ones in there with them, and then find a secret passage. If you're familiar with the Caves of Chaos, sorry if there are spoilers there, and hold up in there and heal up, and come back out and make sure there were no more Knolls, as they had kind of finished in that lair. I had another encounter with a really big. The remainder of I started rolling random encounters for Knolls that would be returning from out in the hunting and patrolling in the woods. So it's not just the Knolls that are sort of stocked in that dungeon. And wound up with one of these 13 Knolls at the very end in the last kind of area they hadn't checked, because they saw a group of 10 Knolls march by down the corridor, but the Knolls didn't see them. But then they went to the end of the tunnel where the Knolls armory is, where they're, by the way, the module is written 3 Knolls down there. So they 13, but the illusionist in the party used a really creative use of phantasmal force, or is it phantasmal force? I don't have the book in front of me. It's the original version where you're just creating an illusion. It's not the fear, the thing most the enemy most fears. It's not a nightmare. It's just whatever the illusionist wants it to be. But the idea is that if something fails at save and believes the illusion, and it is something that could hurt that thing, you can do some actual damage. And this player has used this illusion to great effect a few times over the last couple of sessions. She created uh, um, the first time we used it the session before, she created a D&D style troll, which we call a Grendel, to come rumbling out of the woods and save them from an ambush from some bugbears. And it killed a couple of the bugbears before the bugbears realized it was an illusion. She used it again in the bugbear lair to have an owlbear come rampaging down the tunnel as they were squaring off against some bugbears. And then with the Knolls, she created an illusion of a fireball, and most of the ones who failed to save took enough damage from her damage roll to actually believe they had just been incinerated by a fireball, and they dropped dead. So making very good use of that spell, very very creative use of it. So they finished that, and of course the secret passage is going to lead to what the troll had told them is a passage to the underworld. And he said, "I will tell you the cave you can go in to find this passage, and if you can find it, you'll very easily be able to find the queen of the kobolds, who is being held down there. And so we will see what awaits them down there. Again, this is the passage to the underworld, so I'm gonna have to add some things into it. So they're not just going underground at this point; they're actually passing into this different realm of where reality is different, and where even the dwarves' infravision isn't going to work, because it is a different reality in many ways. So again, yeah, just kind of taking the skeleton of the caves of the chaos, and adding my own stuff in there, and so they're having a lot of fun, and I'm having a lot of fun. And I guess I talked about that for longer than I intended, so it's not been as quick an episode as I thought. Anyway, let me switch over to this segment I recorded in the car uh, right now. Hey everybody, I'm on my lunch break, sitting in my car, and I hadn't put out an episode in a while, so I thought I would record something quick and try to get it up when I get home later today, because I'm overdue for an episode. What's on my mind right now? First of all, if you haven't seen the new Superman movie, what are you doing? Stop what you're doing. Go see the new Superman movie. It is awesome. I think earlier today is the day I'm recording this on Thursday. Joe Richter had a short, spoiler-free reaction to it, but you should be looking at the Nerds RPG Variety Cast sometime coming up. Jason will have an episode where I join him to do a more in-depth review, and I think the general consensus with Joe is that this is a really good, great movie. It's probably one of the best superhero movies that have been made. probably the best Superman since Christopher Reeve in live action, and it shares a lot with. I see some homages to the Christopher Reeve stuff, but also to kind of if you remember the DC animated series from the 90s, that kind of was the sister series to Batman the animated series, and eventually led into the Justice League. I feel like it's also very close to that tone. So it's Superman. Anyway, why I wanted to why that's on my mind is something that's really cool, and I'll put a link in the show description. James Gunn, I think in the week or so, maybe earlier, maybe I just noticed it sooner. He has a set of playlists. He created a playlist for all of the main characters in the movie. So and he's got a little blurb at the beginning of each one that introduces why he chose the types of songs that he did, which is I think a really cool idea. So you've got a Clark Kent Superman list of songs. You've got a Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, Lex Luthor, Eve Tessmacher, and then the other metahumans. So you've got a Metamorpho one, a Mr. Terrific, Hawk Girl, the Engineer, and Guy Gardner. All have playlists that are sort of reflective of their personalities. And what James Gunn says in his kind of overall introduction to the list of playlists is that he does that sometimes when he's trying to write characters. Is he will create a playlist that reflect that character and help him get in the mindset of how to take on that character's perspective, and then how to write scenes for them and write dialogue. And I thought that might be an interesting exercise in role-playing games, would be to create a playlist for your character. So what would go on your character's playlist? Or as a game master, if you're trying to create some significant NPCs, whether they're allies, opponents, the big bad guy, whatever that might be, what would be on their playlist? And of course, I don't think it has to be, there's a little more a stretch, because in Superman, we're talking about characters in a version of our world who would be listening to the same types of music, the same bands and musical acts that we do. If you're talking about a D&D world, probably not. But what would be a good? I think you could still use songs just to kind of get into their mindset. Like if they lived in our world, what would their playlist look like? So that's an interesting idea to me. It might be worth exploring. So I'd love to hear from you guys out there. Whether you want to send me a voice message or send me an email. And as always, there's ways to contact me are going to be in the episode description. But what would either the character you're playing now, or a character you've played in the past that you really enjoyed, or maybe a prominent NPC in a campaign you've run? Who were they? Could you give us sort of the brief description of them as a role playing game character? And then what do you think? Can you think of like 2 or 3 songs? Just these lists that James Gunn put together. There's like 10 or 12 songs per character. It's really long, but even if you just get 2 or 3, what would be the playlist for those characters? And then is that something you could encourage players to do? Is hey, if you're really wanting to kind of make a statement about this character's personality, that either just as a creative exercise to help you get in their mindset, or if you want to share that with the rest of the group, so we get a sense of, okay, this is kind of what this being in the presence of this character is like. It's like listening to these songs. Would that help the group kind of understand one another? Or could you even have that playlist on your phone, and then when the villain shows up, or the NPC shows up, that could be their intro music, like they're like in a movie, or like the fanfare that they're headed for the ring during a WWE match. But let me know what you guys think about that. That's just a brief thought I thought I'd share while I had a minute to record. And I don't know if this may be it. It may be a very short episode, or I may have some other thoughts to tack onto this before I package it all together and publish this episode. Anyway, we'll see where it takes us. Okay, that's it for this episode. I'll put links to things I referenced earlier in the show description, along with ways to contact me. I'd love to hear from you guys. So until next time, wherever you are out there, take care of yourself and make someone happy today. Thanks for listening to the Arcane Alienist podcast. The music you're hearing is Come and Get It by Scott Holmes Music. The cover art is by Dave Bone. Be sure to check out his stuff at ironseer.com. You can leave me a message. I have my SpeakPipe account linked to the show description. You can also send me an email at arcane.alienist@gmail.com. Just embed a voice memo, or I'll just read the text to your email during a future episode. Once again, thanks so much for listening.